2025 is an electoral year in Cameroon, I should say election year, and the political landscape in Cameroon is animating at a very high frequency. Well, Cameroonians are politically active as they look forward to electing a leader who shall be mobilizing their concerns and putting it on a square peg and addressing them. Well, the election is coming at a time when the economic is reaching at its lowest level. Well, just to say, Cameroonians are experiencing general hardship born from the inflation that is caused by the global economic downturn. So Cameroonians are more than ever concerned about their livelihoods and how and their standards of living. And that would be one of the major concerns in the 2025 presidential election. Well, politicians have not been idle. They've been crisscrossing the country, trying to address certain issues, at least from their own perspective and from their own verbousness. Wow, how much would that convince Cameroonians? Tonight, we would be looking at how Cameroonians will be so concerned and the different things they would be looking forward in these 2025 campaigns when politicians eventually unveil their manifestos. So we would be discussing with a politician and a civil society actor to size up the concerns of Cameroonians and how politicians will be addressing in this year's presidential election year. Good evening and thank you for joining us. This is Mountain Echoes. My name is Yannick Fonke and I'm welcoming you on board this very important edition of the program. Mountain Echoes, it is your marketplace of ideas. It discusses issues and not persons. And definitely it talks about current affairs issues. And tonight we talk politics. And to talk about this issue with me tonight, I am pleased to have the leader of a political party present year, that is the United Socialist Democratic Party, USDP. He goes by the name Prince Ekoso Ngwese. We are very happy having him on board. Prince Ekoso Eko Ngwese is the political leader of that party, USDP. Thank you very much, sir, for honoring our invitation.
The pleasure is mine, Yannick. It's true that this is my first time to be here, but I must say that I find it very, very comforting to be here, and your studio is very, very attractive. And I think that from today, it will be the beginning of my consistent coming to your studio.
Right. Thank you very much for such wonderful, kind words of yours. And definitely we'll be happy to have you quite often. We are very proud of your rich intellectual insight and sound mind on current issues. So we'll be happy to have you more times.
Thank you very much.
So what is the USDP?
Um, USDP is the United Socialist Democratic Party, and USDP was born on the 5th of September 2011. And since then, we have been doing our best to make sure that the real change that we profess to happen in Cameroon should really happen. And also, we want to mention that USDP believes in one nation, two systems within the context of a federal constitution. Those are the things that we have been propagating for all these years, and we have taken part in several elections beginning from 2011, 2018, 2020 through a coalition, because we believe that united we stand, divided we fall. And the opposition has a major role to be able to play in order to give that hope and confidence to Cameroonians who are expecting that there should be a kind of unity among real opposition leaders. Because I must be honest to say that among the opposition parties in Cameroon, there are some of them that are not actually within the scope of real opposition, or let me say, people who are looking for alternatives for the development of our country. So USDP falls within the rank and files of those opposition parties that are intentional when it comes to the real change that we desire, or Cameroonians desire, in their country and in their lives, to be specific. Right. And I also want to mention in passing that my full names are Prince Michael Ngwese Echo Ecoso.
Right. I left out the mic. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you very much for that very brief. We'll definitely be talking more about the different political animations in the country. Now, also on the program tonight, we're pleased to have Mr. Keshi Kenneth. He is a civil society actor and he's been very vocal about the hardship, the concerns of Cameroonians on many platforms and been able to garner the concerns and bring it to the limelight, sometimes provoking very thoughtful conversations on why politicians are not addressing the concerns, especially those who've been elected, the concerns of the average Cameroonian. We're pleased to have him on board tonight. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Kikishi.
Thank you, Mr. Yannick. It's a pleasure joining you this evening, particularly meeting somebody that I've only been seeing on social media platforms. I'm talking of Prince Michael Ikoso Mbese. I've been following him very closely, and I want to say that I like your daring attitude. You're not just talking, but you are walking the talk.
Thank you very
And
much.
this trying to catalyze the political landscape of Cameroon
That's right.
and bringing hope. Sometimes it is people like you that actually bring the hope to the masses. If not, the radicalization of youth could have gone wild,
That's right.
because you have concerns, and you are telling them that if this is done, then this nation will change, which is what we want to hear. We don't want to hear that it is totally black and so there's no hope for tomorrow.
That's right.
So it's a pleasure sharing on the same platform with you.
The pleasure
this
is mine.
time.
Right. Okay, so after the sharing of pleasantries, it's now to get now to business. And let's start straight away. And I'd like to find from you, Mr. Kikishi, how would you size up the political landscape of the country at the moment?
Every electoral year comes up with a lot of comments and revamp restructurization, with a lot of so many stakeholders being involved at the last year of an election in a cycle that's supposed to be a 7-year cycle, because actually from the last election, immediately the results are proclaimed, another electoral year cycles begins. In the past 6 years, you might not have noticed a lot of galvanization or catalytic actions from political parties or even other stakeholders like civil society coming in so much, because actually, if you want to measure the political landscape of Cameroon, you must, especially in a year that we have a presidential election, you must start to revisit the other 7 years, the 6 years that have passed before the last year, which is trying to see how the politicians will see how all the stakeholders have been interwoven to either change the mindset of Cameroonians, to raise awareness, to educate, leadership trainings for those who are bracing up like candidates, and the lapses that were observed in the last election, what have they been doing? And you may seem to see that a lot has not been done, because we have not been feeling the groundwork of several political parties. And then, so the last year, you realize that a lot of people are coming in just at the final year, at the neck of time, to put pressure, to sensitize the masses to register for elections. And then you start to see a lot of political parties coming up, forming coalitions left and right, several declarations by other candidates or by candidates about or indications that they are going to be part of it. So it is a final crucial moment where there are a lot of underground works to form coalitions. There are a lot of actions by all the protagonists trying to convince Cameroonians about their potentialities or their capabilities to bring in change. Regrettably, the Cameroonians are not so engaged. I don't know whether the financial constraints are pushing Cameroonians away from thinking politics, since many Cameroonians see politicians or politics in Cameroon as a no-go area. Uh, a period of time where political promises have not been made up for 7 years, and then they come up again with new strategies to canvass supporters to come into behind them. You also find that the stakeholders like the civil society where I belong, being very absent in the catalytic work they're supposed to do to galvanize the population, or to change the mindset of several politicians, which is a very regrettable action. When you look at the political debates in other countries, it is very rich in thought, conscience. But when you find platforms with politicians, most of the time it is about self-aggrandizement, deceitful promises that are hardly fulfilled, and it becomes very, a period that you're asking me to size up the political landscape of Cameroon at this moment.
So you're scoring it something below average.
Below average.
Below average.
Very far below average.
In terms of responding to concerns of Cameroonians, or in terms of animation, in terms of activities among themselves?
In both. In terms of responding to what the Cameroonians expectations of Cameroonians, it is low key. In terms of meeting up with electoral promises, or in terms of coming up with concrete proposals that can push Cameroonians, it is low key.
Right.
When we in the course of it, I will explain.
Okay, you explain further.
Examples.
Yes. Now, Mr. Ekoso, we should say Prince Ekoso. Yes, we're looking at a time when, for any political sympathizer or person who's been following the activities, you saw that things started gaining steam when we started hearing of alliances or coalitions. Before long, we started getting questions on eligibility, and then we started getting endorsements or motions of support, and we were not getting counter opinions about who owns a political party. We have one political party, more than one head, and all of that. And this faction is endorsing this other side, this faction is going, and all of that. When you look at all of this, can you comfortably see the political climate in Cameroon is healthy for Cameroonians?
Yeah, Yannick, thank you once again for that wonderful question. Basically, just like Kenneth has said, it is we live in a context where certain things politically are regrettable. Because democracy is the will of the people. And when the will of the people doesn't subscribe into the process of democracy, then we cannot call it democracy. And those are some of the things that are very, very worrying and disturbing with regards to the political context in Cameroon. One of the things I hold strongly is that people must be given the latitude to express what they have as opinions, whether it is contrary to yours or it is favorable to yours. No one person is the same, or no Cameroonians generally have different opinions. There are about 30 million and above of Cameroonians living in Cameroon, not to talk of those who are living in the diaspora. And so, when a government puts up a situation where what she is preaching is contrary to what she is practicing, then we want to believe that that government doesn't really have the interest of the people at heart. So, there are a lot of different things. Like I said earlier, there are different political parties that are on ground, not necessarily to be able to accompany the project for real change in Cameroon, but they are there to accompany a particular status quo, which has actually stagnated the country for more than 40 years now. And we still see the same scenario going on in 2025, whereby some people feel that we must maintain the status quo. When you see a political leader who is unable to stand by his word or by her word, you must understand that a lot of dirty waters has passed under the bridge. And those are the things that we continue to decry. And those are the things that I feel that Cameroonians find it extremely difficult to comprehend. So, basically, we must move past that level where we think that some people are more Cameroonians than the other. If we don't pass that level, we will be harnessing systematically unhealthy tensions that will actually provoke the escalation of unnecessary anger. These are the things that we have been preaching for the past few years. For a country to be stable, there are certain elements that has to be put in place. One of those elements is to make sure that the democratization of the country is in consistent process. Number two, we must understand that people must become participants of the political decisions of their country. Like Kenneth was mentioning a while ago, when people become, lukewarm in participating in the politics of the country, in voting, for example, then you must understand that something fundamental has gone wrong. And the third point I want to mention is that when laws are made, those laws are made to be followed by everybody in the country. No one should be above the law. If I am the president of a political party by law, which means that the political party has been approved by the powers that be, I am the authentic and legitimate president of that political party. So if at some point in time we see some discrepancies, and this one is dragging the party left and this one is dragging the party right, then we must understand that there is the element of manipulation going on. There is just no way that Kenneth and I will be in the same party, for example, and I am the president, and all of a sudden I see Kenneth organizing a press conference suggesting that he now is the legitimate president of that party. It shows that the rule of law is not being followed. And when the rule of law is not being followed, we have what we call anarchy and chaos and those kind of things. Right. So it is important for us to be able to know that Cameroon is a very wonderful country. Cameroon is a blessed country. And we have the responsibility to make sure that this country remain beautiful and blessed as God has handed it to us. And this needs responsible leadership. And these are the things that we are proposing and we are suggesting, that people should not just come up to propagate themselves as the saviors of a country at the nick of time when elections are coming up. I believe that Cameroonians are not stupid. Cameroonians know who is who amongst all of us who are going about talking about left or right. And when the time will come, Cameroonians themselves will be able to make that fundamental decision.
Right. Mr. Kikishi, what are some of the concerns that Cameroonians have and feel that politicians should take as a priority?
Before I talk about the concerns, about the expectations of Cameroonians towards politicians, permit me factor in serious worries about the electoral code, which many opposition candidates have expressed a worry that it needs to be restructured, that they need to revamp or to touch it, which is one of the reasons why there's always a blame on the electoral body about electoral malpractices. So Cameroonians, the expectation of Cameroonians, Cameroonians are experiencing high inflation rates. You blame it to the international, to a global situation. Uh, that is the hideout of Cameroonian politicians. When other countries were faring well without global, you know, trends that were showing that there's a general inflation, Cameroon was not faring well. So we should not use the global trends now to talk about to begin to align to those factors that are global. I'm sure that for several years, the international community fuel prices in the world market dropped, and we never dropped our own at our fuel pump station. So we cannot start to blame the inflation to global trends. However, the concerns of the Cameroonian women, who make up around 52% of the population, is that when they go to the markets, they cannot, what they used to get in their basket in the market now cannot come back. So it's very challenging to feed families nowadays. You find out that every sector there's a lot of inflation, high taxes. The terrain is not very, very fertile for Cameroonians to do business. The Northwest and Southwest region that with special status where they have even government even gave exoneration for all investors within this area, Northwest and Southwest. You still find that the aggressive nature of taxation department towards them, people come out to create jobs, but within a very short while they close up because of taxation, forgetting that there's a law that warrants that businesses within the North and South should have some exoneration period in order to, it's a risky run, so any investor coming in only would buy that risk, cover his risk by the fact that he will be exonerated from taxes. So, and this leads to a lot of unemployment rate that is very high. It's a very big worry to Cameroonians that the employment rate is very, very high. The greatest worry is the road network. People cannot circulate freely because of poor nature of roads. So it makes producing areas like people produce cocoa, people cassava, cocoyams and plantains. If I have a lot of challenges in bringing food to the market, and so it makes the cost of living again exorbitantly high. Within the Northwest and Southwest, there are other challenges that have come because of the crisis, like freedom of movement limited. You have a day that people in some area will not move out, which is a very big challenge, which limits the movement, and then the alarming rate of human rights violations. Prince Ekoso was talking a while ago about the state of the rule of law and the state and that no Cameroonian is above the law. And unfortunately, the situation that we witness here is that the very persons who are supposed to guarantee the law are the highest violators of the law. If you go to our gendarmerie and police stations and see procedures that are stated in our code are not followed by those people who are supposed to follow. And so a lot of youths are being locked up because of, some people who violate basic fundamental human rights. It is very common nowadays for Kenny to be arrested without an arrest warrant or even without a summon, simply because somebody has just come and told a commissioner or commander or a brigade that this Kenny is owing me 1,000 or 10,000 or 50,000. Yeah. They just prompted you. So that's a gross violation because procedures are not respected. Right. And
look at
you will find people that are arrested as if they committed a flagrant delicto act without such. And so a lot of people are behind that. It is radicalizing the youth and making it very difficult for you to align with the values, the normal values, to add value to their communities where they are living.
Mr. Kenneth, just hold on with the aspect of human rights. We'll talk about it, but let's look at the economy. because you've raised some pertinent issues, and I'd like us to look at the economy. It is the driving force for any society. I mean, he who can put food on the table has the voice to talk. Yes. How would you look at the global economic trend and its trickle-down effect on Cameroon's economy? Because whether we like it or not, Cameroonians are in deep economic pain. So, as a politician, what lens are you looking at it, and how do you think it can be addressed?
Yeah, Yannick, you know, that's a very sensitive discussion or sensitive point that you just raised. And sometimes I look at the way that our leaders actually announce certain challenges to the economy. I feel like probably they are taking Cameroonians for a ride, you know. I don't believe that the global economic impact, and when we talk about the global economic impact, there are certain countries that are termed to be the superpowers, and their economic strength, whether it affects left or it affects right. Let me say this. There are certain elements in the economy, maybe at international levels, that must not necessarily affect other countries. The international economy moves on the rays of things like weapons and many other aspects, and militarization of their system or something like that. When we talk about global economy, for example, if the prices of fuel, for example, that's a global commodity which everywhere in the world people are using it. When the prices of fuel decreases in New York, if we say that actually the global economy affects other countries, then generally that price fuel that decreases in New York should be able to decrease in Cameroon. But if it doesn't decrease in Cameroon, it means that there's a problem somewhere. So I don't believe in that discussion to say that what is happening in Russia and Ukraine is affecting Cameroon. It doesn't affect Cameroon in any way whatsoever. Why? Because the emphasis that they have consistently made is that they are importing flour, grain, rice, blah, 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 to Cameroon. So because of the war, ships cannot move again, they cannot import, blah, blah, blah. What is wrong with the soil in Cameroon to produce all of those things?
We're talking about import substitution.
Yeah.
That is the time, I mean, Cameroon now is having a reawakening on the importance of valorizing our local products and
Of
produce
course.
so that it can help step up and fill up the gap as against those that are imported.
Exactly. So I was just trying to highlight this and to come to certain fundamental aspect which we have been preaching for the past few years. Now, in building a strong economy, there are three main aspects that should be in place. Number one, let me say, when you want to build a strong economy, you start with industrialization. Without industries, how do you build an economy without mechanisms that are turning the people, making the people to be active? You must start with industrialization. And one of the areas of industrialization is agriculture, which Cameroon has abundance of resources in the agricultural domain. You mentioned something about cassava, which is a product, a food crop that is common in Cameroon. And when you look at the sub-region, including countries like Nigeria, the population of Nigeria is about 200 million and above. The population of Gabon is about 2 million and above. Equatorial Guinea is about 1 point something million. Central Africa is about 2 million. Congo is about 2 point something million. If you put up all of this population, that is a great market for Cameroon. And most of these countries depend solely on Cameroon. If we are able to industrialize the agricultural sector, whereby we produce cassava, and the cassava is processed to other products like flour and gari and kumkum, as they normally call it, and many other things can come out from cassava. Even starch comes out from cassava. You make this product to become at its finest stage. The market that Cameroon has around it will actually and automatically boost the economy. Now, but when you talk about industrialization, there is an element that must come in place to be able to make sure that the industrialization is actually effective. For example, we need energy. If there is no energy, the industries will be uncomfortable. For the past 42 years, Cameroon has been struggling to be able to provide even the basic energy sources for home consumption. How many times do we have light cuts in Buea per day? To show you that even the local, maybe, how they call it, poissonnerie, people who have coal houses, they cannot contain, they cannot actually be effective, because if you cut light, for example, 3 times a day, I can assure you the products in that coal house are going to start deteriorate. For the past how many years, we have been struggling with the Lompanga and Menkim project. And I remember some years ago, the then Minister of Energy told us that from a certain period of time, Cameroon will have sufficient energy. We are in 2025. I live in Yaoundé. The electricity cut in Yaoundé is extremely alarming. How do you explain that even in the capital city of the country, you can have electricity cuts for the whole city consistently, let me say about 5 or 10 times in a week? That shows that the country is not in the path towards what they used to call emergence endémique transcend. And it will never happen when these elements are not put in place. So in my view and in my perception about development and about the economy, we must strengthen the energy sector. We have abandoned the Yoke Power Camp here. That power camp can produce electrical power that can survive the entire Fako and Meme. That's a fact. Companies or industries like Tico Soap, that when I was still young, I was growing up, Tico Soap was producing soap, and when they were producing the soap was very cheap because it was locally produced. Look at the Menchum 4. It has been assessed and documented that the Menchum 4 can produce electrical power to the entire sub-region of Africa. What has been the bone of contention for 43 good years that we are unable to exploit Menchum 4? Those are the things that gives me the impression that the current system doesn't understand or does not want to be able to give Cameroonians what they deserve. And so you cannot be talking about the trickle-down effects of the international impact of the war of Ukraine and Russia to Cameroon. It doesn't have any sense. Because we have the products, we have the raw materials, we have the potentials here in this country that can make the country to become an El Dorado of Africa.
Right. Now, let's leave all these textbook explanations.
Yeah.
Let's come back to the practicalities. Somebody watching you now from the market in Great Sopo or in any of the markets we have in the country watching us at the moment will be very concerned and want practical solutions and not just some principled explanations or theories. If you were made president and you have to address the economic situation, how much time will you give yourself and what will be your immediate priorities to, try to short circuit some of those loopholes and then give Cameroonians the standard of living they deserve?
The first thing I want to let all Cameroonians know is that when I become the next president of Cameroon, I'm going to reduce taxes. Because
Would that improve the standard of living?
yes, of course. When you reduce taxes, it gives the common man the opportunity to go to the market with his or her 5,000 and come back satisfied. Because it is the taxes that are levied on the products in the market that increases the price of the product.
Okay.
So, but if you reduce the taxes of the products in the market, every Cameroonian will become comfortable. For the past few years, we have had consistent increase of prices of basic commodities in the market. For example, many Cameroonians don't know that even the fuel prices were increased last year from 770 something francs to now 840 francs. And you go to the station, you don't even ask what is the price of a liter. You just say, put me fuel for 5,000 or 10,000 or full the tank. Cameroonians don't follow things. And at the same time, they are the ones crying. The system technically increased prices without announcing them, because they knew that if you announce the increase of prices, there will be rioting. So, in my view, reducing taxes goes a long way to be able to make the woman in the market, the young person in the market who's trying to raise some money to be able to do certain business, to find his or her way to producing a lasting lifestyle and the economy to be strong. That is one. Number two, it is important for us to note that when you build a system where people are able to produce for themselves, you can make sure that the common man becomes satisfied. For example, I will still try to talk about the cassava product. Fako and Meme, these are places that I've lived most of my life, and I understand that the soil here is extremely rich. I came from a very humble background. I know what it is to live in a very poor environment where we go to the farm all the time with my grandmother, with my sisters, my mothers, and so on and so forth. And I know that each time we go and plant a crop, like for example corn, cassava, plantain, and so on and so forth, we get from that product, we sell part of it, and we feed from part of it. Looking at the context of the Northwest and the Southwest right now, with the advent of the crisis, many people have run out of their comfort zones to environments that they are, in my view, very, very uncomfortable now. They are unable to do what they were supposed to do. Now, if people have migrated from rural areas to urban areas where life is too hard, how do you contain those kind of situations? You must create an environment where these people can go back to their places where they can cultivate food, sell part of it, and consume part of it. Those are the things that we must be able to do. But in my view, people are not interested to see that certain tension should be actually completely wiped out. They take pleasure in seeing that people are in some kind of bondage and constant tension. So one of my priorities is to make sure that the crisis that is going on should come to a definite halt, because there is concern on how to feed the population, and the feeding of the population is contingent on those, especially in the rural areas.
Right.
So they must go back to their places where they can actually feed themselves and then feed the other part of the country. So those are the things that I'm looking at. And to do that, we must have the ability to dialogue with the people. Make sure that you understand their problems. people should not actually look at these things that are happening in the North and Southwest as if it's some extraterrestrial events. These are the outflow of anger that has accumulated over the years. And because we have a system of leaders who talk to the people only twice a year. If you talk to the people only twice a year, be rest assured that they will accumulate a lot of different tensions that you will not be able to address. So as a president, I will address the issues and I will come down to their level because I understand that the common man needs some level of encouragement. And thirdly, I'm going to give incentives to some of those rural farmers. I know there are issues talking left and right about they give farmers, like we're mentioning about that there was a time of subvention for the Northwest and Southwest for business or investors. But is that applicable? It is not applicable. And why is it not applicable? Because some people feel that they must take advantage of the chaos, to be able to exploit other people. So I will talk with everybody who has concerns, and those concerns will be addressed.
Right.
That is basic common sense knowledge on leadership and management.
Right. Your economic policy sounds a bit theoretical, by some estimation. And it again raises more questions on considering the very tight financial policy, because you understand, because of the global economic downturn, the revenue sources in the country also reduced, so they had to broaden the tax base to see that more money can come to the state coffers without necessarily paying down on Cameroonians in terms of all of that. But all of that have translated into causing more harm. And from what you're speaking, you're going to reduce taxes, but you've not said how you're going to improve on the financial stability of the country too, because that's a priority. You need money to be able to construct roads and all of that, and you cannot have that if you're reducing taxes and Cameroonians are fine livelihood-wise, but in terms of taking care of other things, you can't handle them. So it's going to cause a lot of economic imbalance.
Yannick, let me clarify certain things to you. In building a strong economy, you don't need government to be everywhere. Building a strong economy is being built by the private sector. And the private sector has stakeholders. And those stakeholders are going to be the machinery of the economy.
So you're going to empower the private sector?
Of course, if you raise taxes, and you must understand that by raising taxes, there are people who don't even pay those taxes, and most of them are these big economic stakeholders. They don't pay taxes.
By your imagination or by
reality? It is not by my imagination, Mr. Yannick. It is by facts. And I will say that probably it's not only in Cameroon. And that leads us to the aspect of corruption, which has to be handled squarely. We must understand that the private sector is actually eradicated in Cameroon. And when you eradicate the private sector, the government becomes autocratic, because the government feels that you must come and do some allegiance before they give you some incentive or some motivations. And when you make it like that, you create that environment where you have to raise tax because you want to take care of this, you want to take care of that. In the federal system, the dichotomy between private sector and the public sector is going to be extremely clear.
All right.
And that will help each zone or each region or each state, whatever you want to call it, to be responsible for the germination of their economic sector.
Right.
That is fundamental. Because when people depend on Yaoundé will feel that, okay, she can be able to raise taxes in order to meet up with the different demands. But when people are responsible for themselves in their own different sector, there are aspects that you will be able to see that it is easy to be able to manage. It is very clear. So the over-centralized government is what is causing this aspect of raising taxes.
Right.
And we must actually curtail from that if we want to build a strong economy, we want to make the people to be at ease in their various sector, and I emphasize we must make sure that the private sector is actually boosted in such a way that they can be the custodian of job creation.
Right.
It's not the government.
Okay.
Government should not be the one to be responsible to employ people, and that is why you see most Cameroonians now are going abroad because the government seem not to be able to employ anymore. But employment responsibility should not be contingent only on government.
Right.
The private sector has to do their job.
That's very important. Mr. Kikishi, about the economy, and you've always been raising concerns on the general hardship of Cameroonians. What are the tools you think politicians should be put it on to handle the economy in a way that it will benefit Cameroonians more? I mean, in terms of putting more money in the pockets of Cameroonians, because now, whether we like it or not, you need to dig deep, very, very deep, for you to associate yourself. A cup of rice is now sold as 250 francs.
Right.
A bag of rice is rising up to 50,000 francs. And everything seems to be so pretty difficult, yet politicians keep promising. So, in your own estimation, what are some of the practical steps politicians should take in handling the economy in a way that it benefits Cameroonians more?
Yeah, Mr. Yannick, when Prince was talking, he talked about creating jobs by industrializing the country. You can only industrialize a country if you train technically. Technical education should take the presence over this our general education. Youths need skills, not knowledge. Knowledge is to answer questions in classroom. To work in an enterprise, you need better skill, not knowledge. And so that's the sector where you find so many schools. The many technical schools that you find, go there, find the infrastructure, the equipments that they need for training are not there. And so you can only build industries if you are sure that you have skilled laborers to work in those industries. The population of the CEMAC region is about 50 to 60, more than 50 million to 60 million and above. And today we pride ourselves as Le Continent, because we are truly Le Continent based on our subsoil, based on our culture, based on several other reasons. We have everything that it takes. Prince was talking about taking advantage of the size of Nigeria. I don't even want to go far to Nigeria. I just want to take the CEMAC region, which is part of us, easy to move within CEMAC region, theoretically, maybe based on the fact that circulation, there are some, you can bypass some controls because there is a free trade zone. And those people need food, and Cameroon has the food. I was privileged to go to one village in Kak, after Tombel.
Yeah.
And the bunch of plantain that they sell here, that they will tell you in the market, is around 3,000, 4,000. They say that there is 500 francs.
Right.
How do you get that bunch of francs? It's a very short distance, from Kak to Tombel and then to Boya or Douala or to Equatorial Guinea or to wherever. What is government doing to facilitate transportation of foods from the farms to the markets? No routes. The dry season is even better. When fuel prices increase, like he was saying, every other thing that is transported by vehicle or by motorcycle becomes expensive. Whereas most of that food, you talk about post-harvest losses. The plantain, they put it on the road in heaps, but there's no vehicle to transport it, and it gets bad there. So you see, we are still in an epoch where farmers are complaining about post-harvest losses because of the network of roads. So the practical things that you're asking that we can do to fight poverty, if after you have trained your youth, you create industries, reduce taxes, they will get jobs. And look at a sector like the mining sector. He talked about energy, the epileptic nature of our energy. Yaoundé 10 times a week, Boya 20 times a day, Douala. Those are the priority areas for every government that wants to change the system. A cup of rice is 200 francs, but I tell you that Ndop, that has how many thousand, more than 4,000 hectares of land that was being used some years back. Maybe it's only 100 that is being exploited now. Whereas there has been a lot of promises. Money even came in. I'm sure that I was in court some years back when they were judging one minister, I will not call the name. And one of the things that they stated is that the money that came in to revamp the rice, whether how many billions, he entered but in his name, in his account name. It was in court, it's open court, and I heard it. I was like, wow. Look at Marwa, Semi, and Semri.
That's right.
They used to produce rice. We do not need to import rice.
That's right.
The rice problem came before Ukraine war. And it has been proven by agronomists that Cameroon can produce wheat.
Of course.
So what is this cry about global trends? The money that these people take and put in their pocket, you touch the corruption sector. And if you ask me what you can do to bring back money to Cameroon's economy, and we do not talk about corruption that takes more than 1/10 of the budget, the 7 trillion that we have set for the 2025 budget, 1/10 will go into private pockets. Yes, that is the truth.
That's right.
So when he talked about reducing taxes, for me, it is possible that without corruption, taxes can be decreased. Without corruption, salary scales can be increased. Cameroon is the only country in the CEMAC region with the lowest salary scale.
That's right.
The lowest. Other people buy food from us very expensive, but they pay. You know, it is after 43 years. I remember within these 43 years, Ghana celebrated 17 years of non-light cut. It means 17 years Ghana went without saying that electricity was cut. But you know why our ministers do not care about the energy sector? They have generators in their homes. Those powerful generators that can pick up this in a fraction of a second when light is gone up. So they don't notice it. You know, there was a ridiculous story a few weeks back about the ambassador of a certain country. I don't know whether it's Ghana or who was going to meet the minister of forestry. And then at the basement, light went off, and they were expecting him to climb the stairs to the 13th floor, or it's 18th floor, I've forgotten exactly. And that is something shame. The generator that was there was not working. We have seen doctors complaining of basic infrastructures in the hospital, basic equipment to be able to take care of the health situation of Cameroonians. We find dilapidated structures. We find even some structures that have been constructed by the population, handed to government, but with no equipment to take care of the health of Cameroonians. Those are serious priority areas that we need to be talking about. Recently, there was a drive in Boya where several people selling drugs were shut down. That's a good move, maybe with the justification that they bring. But you will find out that when you go to the pharmacy and you need just 2 paracetamol or whatever, and you have to buy a whole packet of 3,000 or 5,000 because you need only your prescriptions that you should need just 3 of them. How do you expect the ordinary man in Boya or the ordinary Cameroon to survive without, So you must have a coping strategy to ensure that whatever measures you take, maybe to curb maybe illegal and illicit sale of drugs, you have a subsidiary mechanism for people to be coping mechanisms for people. We may not have time to really elaborate, but one of the aspects that I always emphasize on any platform is that we have a huge human resource potential. This country is blessed. It's one of those countries where you find Cameroonians at NASA, you find Cameroonians at Boeing, you find Cameroonians in all fields of life. You find Cameroonians who are great economists, advising other presidents and other countries. Mm-hmm. But the political will back home, we look at everybody as a political entity. Mm-hmm. Where is he meditating? If you are not meditating in a party that favors the system, they'll not listen to you. All this time that we wait on. Sometimes people ask me, like, we are not seeing your platform. I say, we are talking to. We want us to talk to people that have blocked their ears to
That's right.
that 2%. The ruling class is about 2%. They have blocked their ears to 98% of Cameroonians. We are about a population of 31 million.
That's right.
For God's sake, people cannot rule us without listening to us. Mm-hmm. You asked about sizing up the political landscape of Cameroon, and I just started crying. Because how will you say, they talk about women participating in politics. You see that they have, youths, politics to leave school for youths and politics for politicians. Do you remember the slogan? But we have we have a book, Communal Liberalism. Let me cue in from where Prince was talking.
Right.
If you do not liberalize the economy, let me tell you, recently, the boss of the customs pressed them for raising up a certain sum of money in a certain period. And everybody clapped. Yeah. Let me tell you, if you only decide to decentralize and say that, okay, you people have these resources per year, you raise this amount, send this percent to the central unit. They will still have their billions to embezzle there.
Of course.
And the countries, people will challenge the status quo.
That's right.
Are you sure?
Will work for themselves because they know they're working for their communities. They will work our assholes to raise money, to be able to deliver, build our constituencies, and then send back the ones for them to eat and be flying over around the world, building their hospitals and schools out of the country. We don't care about that.
Right. Now, we'll soon be rounding up, but let's talk about the human rights situation in the country. And reports from the Human Rights Watch and other Britainhood institutions have always been very damning in terms of human rights in Cameroon, and it's been very concerning as people are not only getting missing, but the level of torture and also everyday human rights abuse in the country has been on a rise. How concerning is this to you as a politician?
Well, beside the different concerns that I have, one of the major concerns that I have is the security challenge of Cameroon. When the people are not secured, it becomes difficult to be able to manage them. Beside the Anglophone crisis, the security challenge we have throughout the country, and shamefully to that, even right at the capital city, Yaoundé, where women have been abducted, taxi people are being killed here and there, assassinated, and young girls are being mutilated from time to time, and it gives me a very great concern because it means that if these things are happening to fellow Cameroonians, they can as well happen to me. And so who wants to live in a society where he or she feels vulnerable, where weapons are in the hands of every kind of,
hoodlum,
Jack and Jill? How did we even come to this state where even in the capital city, people are being assassinated, journalists are being killed without any justification, and until now we have no clear report as to what happened to that journalist. These are things that I believe has to be the core concern of any serious politician. And I have addressed those issues from time to time. I believe strongly that we can not only equip our military to be able to fight crimes or police to fight crimes, we must also educate them to understand the need for their citizens to be in security. You cannot just engage into combating crime and make sure that people are killed because you suspect that they are criminals. You must also understand that those people who are supposed criminals are human beings and they have the same rights like you have. I believe strongly that when we educate our men and women in uniform, we are educating the security of the country. In my view, most of them don't really understand the nitty-gritty of how to be able to secure the country. Securing the country doesn't mean that you should be able to secure an individual or secure some bunch of individuals. And that is what we have been experiencing in Cameroon. The security of the country is the security of the citizens. And so our men and women in uniform has to be trained to understand the value of life and the value of all citizens and the rights of all citizens.
Right.
That is very, very fundamental. The second aspect is to make sure that those men and women in uniform are well equipped. It's not just enough to be able to give somebody a gun. There are other aspects that should be able to get them equipped. You know, for example, I have had an experience where in the neighborhood where I was living some time ago, I mean, there was a loud music playing from 9 p.m. right up to 3 a.m. By around, let me say 2 a.m. like that, there was a number that was published that Cameroonians could call for rapid intervention and stuff like that by the gendarmes and police. I dialed that toll number, and the receiver told me that, Monsieur, il faut patienter, no? You have to be patient. Maybe in less than 2 hours it will be morning, and probably they are going to stop playing the music. I was embarrassed, you know. So, but I understood. And then there are other circumstances where I have found myself, and when I call it, they say they don't have money to put fuel in their vehicle. So all of those things, you know, provoke different kind of attitude from our men and women in uniform. And it is evident that we have seen situations where some of those men and women in uniform have been caught in acts of, you know, banditry and stuff like that. So it's not just enough to give them guns. It's enough to equip the whole system so that they can be able to respond to the challenges of insecurity, especially in the modern times.
Right. Thank you very much. And Mr. Kekeche, I know human rights is one of the things you hold so passionately. Very quickly, very briefly, what should politicians be doing to handle the human rights situation in the country?
The first thing is that the rate of impunity is so high. And when impunity is so high, it only pursue other people to fall, you know, to continue to violate rules. Politicians who are by themselves already violators can really not really fight impunity. You know why these men in uniform do what they do? Because they have realized that they are politicians and other government personalities who have siphoned our wealth or embezzled a lot of money are still in power, and they have proofs. There are proofs that they have embezzled. They have refused to put in place Article 66. So it's like they have built an immunity for them who have embezzled or siphoned funds. And so the politicians, you know, I would have thought that you asked me what the civil society should be doing to ensure that we fight impunity, because the people that who violate the rights or who violate rights and who have become the lawbreakers are those who make laws. Yes, because you can't. How can a member of parliament or a senator close his eyes to issues that you have raised? A journalist is killed. They sit in their sessions. That life is taken. The very people who vote a constitution and say that life is sacrosanct would not mention in their sessions, or nobody would rise up to say, stop, please. Let's talk about this life that was taken away from somebody. It means that they condone with the happiness. And why do they condone? Because their hands are dirty. All of them have dirty hands. So it is difficult for them to speak up against this thing. But the unfortunate thing about all of us, including them, is that human rights concern all of us. If you are not affected directly, it has an impact on your environment. If you go to Buea prisons, you will find out that there are more than 2,000 inmates, right? There are guys there who have not been judged for the past 3 years, who have not been to court for the past 3 years. Don't ask me where I'm taking my statistics. Go there. And so, when a minister, I remember there's a minister in jail who started complaining and talking about human rights only when he went to prison.
That's right.
He started complaining even from the process of his arrest. They violated his rights. So I'm just beckoning on the people that are sitting on power that they will not sit there for too long.
That's right.
When you go to the hospital, your right may be violated by a nurse that you neglected to ensure her own welfare. If you go to the fuel pump, they might also violate your right when you want to buy fuel, because the government do not give you fuel, it gives you bond. That you need to go to the fuel station and take fuel. So, and then when your wife goes to the market to buy food, they may violate her rights there. Human rights are like customer services. If you fail to attend to me when I come to your office, you treat me poorly, I can call it as a human rights defender. I will say you violated my right. If as a customer you don't pay attention to the needs of your clients, you know that you are not the end. You also go to places where another person needs to attend to you as a customer. So there's nobody that is not receiving or giving when it comes to customer service. And there's nobody in human rights, when you talk about a situation of human rights, that is not giving and only receiving. There are times that you have to give back. You pay attention to somebody when you listen to your office. I'm going to tell you a scenario that is happening very current in Buea. Last week, a young guy, a student, was extorted 300,000 francs by men in uniform. They took his telephone and did the transfer. That money was recuperated last week, though. On this weekend, Saturday, I met another situation where a young man was telling me that they took his phone, and since he refused to give money, they sent their hands in his pocket and removed the only money that he has. And he was trying. He said he begged them to even give him transport. They refused. So you see, this situation is because of the level of impunity. But to the masses and to the population that I always talk on my platforms because of them, I still say that do not judge situations from a hearsay. Always try to follow up your own case. There's a police number 1500, which is a toll-free number. If you are aggressed by a policeman, you call that number. If you are in Buea, you can go to their service. And they will do the discipline. Don't talking about stories because don't feel hope is not lost. That is what I'm saying.
That's right.
Right.
But don't be too. Let's beat fear out of the system. One of the things that we fear today, and that's where I admire you, Prince.
Thank you very much.
And your presidential run-up,
Thank you.
the presidential run-up. I say, oh, wow, you are very daring. You are very daring. And I ask myself, where will you take money to run this thing? We'll talk that after, though.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And we'll definitely be wrapping up at the moment. We'd just like to make this call to Cameroonians. It's an election year, and I mean, the electorate has not been convened, meaning Cameroonians can still register to vote. We all know about the voter apathy that exists. So, what's that clarion call to Cameroonians? Your concluding remarks.
My fellow Cameroonians, my name's Prince Michael Ngwese Ekoso. I hail from the Bakuri land and from the Bakosi land. My father is a Bakurian, my mother is a Bakosian. I grew up part of my life in a small village called Balangi, where I began my primary school, and continued in Likumba, where I continued my primary school and then went to the secondary school. Back then it was GHS Tico. My principal back then was Myoto Ponje, who is now part of those who admire me in my pursuit for becoming the next president of Cameroon. I believe strongly that we have a long way to go. And that long way to go is only possible when we put our hands together. Today, I am privileged to talk to you through the cameras of this wonderful studio of this
DMRTV.
DMRTV. And it is my humble opinion that the times have changed and we must change with the times. It is important for us to drive away fears, to drive away all the frightfulness of participation in the political landscape of our country. From every corner of this country, everybody is crying. Our children are crying, we ourselves are crying, those at the top are crying, those beneath are crying. I bring to you this message today, asking you all to go and register in the electoral office and to get your voter's card. We cannot continue to cry when we have the solution in our hands. This 2025 is an election year, and that election year means that we need to change the leadership structure of this country. I have volunteered myself to become your servant and to become that man or that boy or that husband who is going to change the dynamics of the politics of our country. I am determined, I am focused, I am courageous, like many others have said, but my courage will not be fulfilled, my determination will not be fulfilled if you don't join hands with me for us to be able to get these things done. So, fellow Cameroonians and those especially in the diaspora, the time has come for us to be able to make sure that our country does not slump itself into the dynamics of chaos and confusion. The only way to do that is to come together and let us make the necessary aspect, which is voting massively. I expect that those who are going to register in the electoral list will be above 15 million. And in the days to come, we'll continue to talk about these things and to make sure that Cameroonians register massively. I believe strongly in the strength of the Cameroonian people, both at home and in the diaspora. And that is why today, once again, I ask you to go and register massively in the electoral list. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prince Ekoso of the United Socialist Democratic Party, running up there on the program. Mr. Kikishi, your concluding remarks before we leave?
I was part of the closing ceremony of the Bishops' Conference, and I heard them make a clarion call for Cameroonians to have hope in their country. I want to say that without hope, we can only become very radical and then lose, our consciences and do the things that will not build our nation. They say you can live without food for several days, you can live without water, you can live without air, but you cannot survive 4 seconds without hope. That's why somebody at the dying bed, they only tell you that they give up, and so that you die without suffering people. And then when you lose hope, you die now. So we should not lose hope. We should begin to think positively about this nation, especially the Third Republic. There's nothing that this leadership can give us now, but as we make up a greater population, the youths make up a majority, let them go to the register and use the bullet, the electoral bullet, to bullet out this generation that is making us to lose hope in our future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And of course, dear viewers, it is on this note we place a cap on today's edition of the program Mountain Echoes. We want to thank you immensely for watching tonight. Of course, tonight we're looking at the key concerns of Cameroonians that politicians must address in the wake of the race to the 2025 presidential election. On seat tonight, we had Prince Ekoso Ngwese Eko Michael. He is the president of the United Socialist Democratic Party. We also had Mr. Kishi Kenneth, a member of the Civil Society Action Group here in Cameroon. And definitely, I was Yannick Fonke for presentation. Brother Tasang Ambrose manned the broadcasting and transmission. Thank you very much for watching.